Hi everyone, this is Matthew Archambault from DrawingTutorialsOnline.com, and this is podcast number 8. This podcast is also going to dub as Chapter 2 in Anatomy Lesson number 11 for members of DrawingTutorialsOnline.com. Now, first chapter for members of DrawingTutorialsOnline.com was, a terms chapter, all the terms of the spinal column. But what I want to do for you on this podcast, I'm not going to get into necessarily anatomy terms with you. The title of this podcast is Drawing from the Center. Now, I'm going to just draw and talk at the same time, and I'll just map this out for you. And I can see that I got to draw a little bit more to the left, or else I'm not going to fit this in. Pretty much what I really want to do is to pack in as much information in this 10-minute podcast as I can. So I'm just going to draw as fast as I can, and I'm going to talk while I draw. All right. So pretty much, I just finished teaching a pre-college class, and they were all high school students, and they were actually really good. Let me trash this before I go any further. But the one thing that I noticed with people when they first start to draw, gosh, this pencil is so sharp, is that they always cling on to the edge. And basically what I kept trying to remind the students as they were learning was to put information in the center. Put information in the center. And I'm starting right here. That part of the vertebrae, or that individual vertebra, is called a transverse process. And so basically, I'm starting right from the center. All right, so I'm going to map that out, and then there is an articular process. So I'm doing a lot in the center first. And let me move a little bit quicker here because I'm wasting too much time. So yeah, get out of the habit of always working at the top of the head, a little bit on the left, a little bit on the right. Then you go down to the shoulders and you focus in on the contour. What you really want to do is give a little bit more importance to the center of your object, because the center is, there's some really good stuff in there that will really help your drawings look a whole lot more three-dimensional. Now, the main topic of this podcast, this 10-minute drawing, is totally drawn from the center, but a subtopic is going to be edges, okay? And sometimes, let's say we can relate this vertebra right over here to a portrait. This transverse process of what I'm drawing right now, and I keep going over it, I'm making it too black, is the beauty of it is it kind of almost relates to a portrait. Let's say this is the nose, and you would start maybe a portrait at the nose, and you could consider doing the nose at its sharpest. This would be the sharpest because it's coming into the foreground. It's my sharpest edge. So let me just keep moving around. And so now I'm coming down. I am working the edge right now, no doubt about it. But yeah, I want to keep going back to the center. Now there's just some beautiful shadow shape over here. And then we have this inferior articular process. Now, as I'm doing all this stuff, I'm working the edge right now, no doubt about it. So I'm going to go back into the center. I started with the center, so that just helps me like tremendously. Okay, so the main thing that you want to pull from this, and this really relates to like any figure drawing class that you're doing. Oh boy, this is light. I got to press down harder. Yeah, let me press down a little bit harder immediately for you so you can actually see what I'm doing. When you're drawing, say, a figure drawing lesson, definitely don't always start at the same spot. The traditional method is to start at the head, all right? And try something different with your drawings. Try to work in the center a little bit more and branch out from the center. I had a friend in college, a great portrait painter, Dorian Vallejo. You should Google him. He's absolutely amazing. He would, we were like competition. I mean, he kicked my butt when we were in school, but pretty much he did this thing every once in a while where he would start a portrait at the eye, and the teachers would absolutely hate it. They say, no, block in the big masses first. And, I understand 20/20 hindsight what they were talking about, but it was kind of fun to watch him do it from the center of the eye and then working his way out. And I tried that a couple times, and I force my students, sometimes my undergraduate students, in the animation department at the School of Visual Arts to do these drawings where you do start with the center, because even a lot of my students who are extremely talented, way more talented than I could ever dream to be when I was their age back in the day, they still get into habits, and habits, drawing is really a lot of habits that you've acquired over the years, and a lot of correcting your drawings, bringing them up to the next level, is simply changing some of the habits that you've developed over time. All right, so now we are basically halfway through this podcast. So I could now focus in on what is coming into the foreground. Now, we're drawing bone, and bone is very light. So I have like a little quandary going on right now. It's bone. I understand it's a light value, but it's also a podcast, and I want you to see what I'm doing. So I'm going to ignore matching my values, and I'm just going to manipulate my values and make everything just a tad darker. And so now I can come on in here and just really make sure I don't want to pull out the eraser just yet. This should be my sharpest edge. Now I put in some tone. I'm going to go over that tone with some line. Okay, and so now I'm just still working texture in the center. All right, and so basically this ventral body of the vertebra is a cylinder. And so I'm going to, the other thing I'll speak about on this podcast is your line, and don't always feel the need to outline everything completely equally. That's the other thing. If you combine working on the edges, on the contour, the edge of the body, or whatever you're drawing, and then you outline everything equally, those two things together are really something that you don't want to do often. You want to break your line in strategic locations. Now, when I mean break the line, I mean don't put an outline. And during that pre-college class, it was 5 days in a row, Monday through Friday from 1 o'clock to 4 o'clock. It was really a lot of fun. And basically one of the hours in a 3-hour class I devoted to line quality. And I told everyone, I'm like, listen, don't outline your drawings equally everywhere. That's an instant way to flatten everything out, basically. So pretty much, where am I not going to outline? So I'm not going to outline the top of this spinous process, basically part of the vertebrae that kind of sticks out. I'm not going to, I did outline it, but I could also keep it light. I can break the line right over there with an eraser. When you break the line like that, it just immediately relaxes your drawing. So now maybe what I would do, boy, I got a really shaky hand today. I drank way too much coffee. I would come on in and I would totally, I'm trying to do continuous line, keep my pencil on the page. That's a really, side note, that's a really cool thing to do. When your hand is shaky, don't lift your pencil off the page, keep it down. This is where my dark line is going to be, right on the bottom of the vertebra. Now I'm pressing down a little bit hard so you can actually see it. I wouldn't go this dark. So for everyone who's looking at this and saying, hey, that's a light vertebra, why are you going so dark? Just so you guys can see it. So just putting in some texture. Now let's get back to this interesting part over here. I don't necessarily love what I'm doing, but again, my podcasts are not necessarily for me to love what I'm doing. They are here. I'm basically doing this to kind of share some knowledge that I've gained over the years of doing hundreds upon hundreds of book covers for publishing companies, all the mistakes that I've made, and sharing all of my mistakes with the members of drawingtutorialsonline.com, and all the things that I see when I teach all my students, and I get a lot of students over the years. I see a lot of patterns with people, and certain things really improve their drawings immediately. And this technique that I'm showing you is one of them, where you just stop with the outline. And now I'm going to switch pencils. And so you might say, well, Matt, it's kind of hard to decipher what's going on over here. So if you want, you know, I can come back and just with a sharp pencil in a very shaky hand today. I don't know why I have this shaky hand. It's probably because my wife is away on a business trip and I am alone with my children. That's probably why I'm shaking. Yeah, so let's come on down, and now I'm doing an outline, but it's a lighter outline. I'm not going crazy with it. There's all these other goodies with line that you can do on the edge. You can wrap around the form, show the viewer that everything is dimensional. We're past the 10-minute mark. I really want to keep going with this. I'm going to push it till 12. I think that's kind of like my limit with a video podcast. Now, as I'm doing this, I can even outline some outline some highlights. Stipple. I'm still trying to go with as much continuous line as I can. So I hope that you got from this quick little podcast that the next drawing that you do, whether it be a portrait, whether it's a still life or a figure drawing in a life drawing class, don't start in the same spot. Start somewhere different. Change it up. Promote edges on the interior that really come forward, like this transverse process what I'm drawing right now. Now, if you're interested in anatomy, if you're interested in figure drawing, if you like this kind of stuff, visit drawingtutorialsonline.com. And right now I've got a really cool deal going on where if you sign up for the annual plan, you get a free 4-disc, it's actually 5 discs, there's a bonus disc in there, 5-disc DVD set of my cast drawing project, which is really a cool project. I put a lot of effort into it, and that is worth $57. So if you sign up for the $147, you're immediately the $147 annual fee, which is pretty inexpensive compared to a lot of classes, and the information you're going to get is kind of nuts. Nuts crazy, a lot of information, almost information overload. I'm trying to simplify the site a little bit for everyone. You immediately get that gift of that cast drawing project. So that's my podcast. I'm going really heavy with this drawing, and if I zoom in ever so slightly, yeah, you can see now I could come on back, work with my eraser, and I can pull this stuff out. This could be my hardest edge, this edge right over here, to make that come forward. I'm going to do a little bit more work on this drawing, and I'm going to get into the anatomy for members of drawingtutorialsonline.com. So I hope you like this podcast. Any podcast suggestions, just go to drawingtutorialsonline.com, click on contact, and shoot me an email. Say what would you like for a podcast. Thanks for watching. See you soon.